Greetings and welcome to another edition of Montpelier Connection. I'm State Representative Mike Mwrowicki from the Windham 4 District of Putney, Dummerston, Westminster. Today we have a special guest. We have Kesha Ram from Burlington.
Howdy, folks.
Kesha has been in the House of Representatives now for 6 years?
This is my 8th year.
Your 8th year?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness, I've lost a few years. Kesha represents a part of Burlington around the college.
The Hill Section University in Old North End of Burlington.
Yeah. And the reason Kesha's here today, besides all the good work she does, is she's looking to expand the role she does in running for Lieutenant Governor.
That's right.
So welcome.
Thank you.
You want to tell people a little bit about yourself, and then why are you running for Lieutenant Governor?
Sure, absolutely, and thank you so much, Mike, for having me. So again, my name is Representative Kesha Ram. I am the Vice Chair of the Natural Resources and Energy Committee. And believe it or not, this is my 4th term, my 8th year in the legislature. I started in the legislature at the ripe age of 22. I was a senior at the University of Vermont and the student body president. And it really felt like a pivotal time for the next generation in Vermont. As folks may remember, it was the start of the Great Recession. It was 2008. And many of us were lucky if we had a place on our parents' couches or, just the opportunity to think about what our future might look like. I personally lost access to health care in the Great Recession. My parents lost their benefits. And so I started knocking on doors without benefits. It felt like, a really pivotal time to be heard and to help young people have a voice. And so I knocked on every door in the district. I registered lots of voters, and I challenged incumbents. And I won by the largest margin of any challenger in the state that year. And what that said to me was people were hungry to pass the torch for someone hardworking who would help represent what Vermont needs most, which is a future workforce. And so, I've spent my 8 years in the legislature alongside working and holding a few different jobs. When I was first running for the legislature, I was a preschool teacher and a Head Start advocate. Gave me a great window into the lives of some of our families living in poverty and their struggles to keep their kids stable and in a program that helps them get the Head Start they need while they, were struggling with evictions and hunger. And for 3 years, I was the legal director at Women Helping Battered Women, which is our Chittenden County domestic violence organization, and another window into people's experience in the social service and the judiciary, both sectors. And then I spent the last 3 years as a community advocate in local government in Burlington, trying to ensure voices were heard, people's needs were addressed in arguably the unit of government where rubber meets the road, and you're paving the roads, you're plowing the roads, you're dealing with barking dogs, and you're trying to make sure people get the services they need.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to hear your connection to early education, because this governor and this president has made a real commitment to early education. I'm a former child care worker, site director, and now working on House Human Services, setting policy for that area. There's a lot of money being invested in that right now. Is that the right way to go?
Well, I think we cannot overstate the importance of early childhood education. For every dollar we invest, we know we are returned $8 in societal benefits, whether it's really direct in terms of students doing better in kindergarten and being ready for elementary school, or it's reduced crime rates and reduced poverty rates further down the road. For kids to have that early start to build their vocabulary, for families to get the supports they need when they take their kids in, I can't think of a better way to break our cycles of poverty here in the state, which are significant. And, this is an area where public-private partnerships make a lot of sense. People want to reduce the costs of disruptive experiences down the road, family services taking kids away, or our education system simply not being able to manage students who aren't doing well. So let's make that investment early.
Yeah, you bet. I think a lot of for instance, the Business Roundtable, I think, has made this a priority of theirs, and I think it's if we're going to make an investment in Vermonters, that's a good place to start. One of the challenges, though, is getting people there. Right. And families that tend to live in generational poverty, it's hard to sometimes get them to follow through on things, get the kids there.
Right.
the connection between school and early education centers or centers that aren't school-based, would that be better served if we're all under the banner of the Department of Education?
Well, I think Vermonters have a proud tradition of forging their own path and figuring out what works best in their community. And, granted, I would love to see more coordination on all fronts with the Agency of Education so we have the right data. We know who our 3- and 4-year-olds are. We know how they're doing. But I think that can be achieved without a top-down approach necessarily to what each community needs to do to meet the needs of its families.
Whether it's early education or really any part of the realm of human services, it's really dependent upon a vibrant economy.
Mm-hmm.
What are your ideas for helping continue to grow the economy? I mean, we've been on a growth trajectory for a number of years now, perhaps not as robust as people would like, but what are your ideas for a new economy?
Well, Vermont was slow to get into the recession, and it's going to be slow to get out. So some of it is beyond our control, but you brought up human services and a robust economy, and I think there's an important connection there. Sometimes our programs don't do enough to help Vermonters build assets and wealth, and I'm sure this is a topic you explore because it's a great human services committee that we have in both the House and the Senate. But for example, you talk to somebody like Joyce Judy at CCV, who was, early visionary for the Reach Up program, and we have a post-secondary education program in Reach Up, where we spend $1 million helping folks who need a leg up, but aren't just looking for 3 low-wage jobs a week. Yeah. They can go to college, and those work hours are counted towards them getting their education, becoming scholars. Let's expand that program. I hear from the Department of Children and Families that it's too difficult, a barrier for many Vermonters, and to that I would say we used to have more Reach Up caseworkers who were also college advisors at the same time, and they would help families with transportation and childcare so that they could get where they needed to go. It is a difficult haul to be going to college, raising a family, and trying to support yourself. But that's what the state should be helping people to do, so we have the workforce that we need.
And the research does show us that the moms who continue to a post-secondary education are the ones who get off of public assistance and don't come back.
Exactly.
So it really is a good way to go with this.
And when I talk to business leaders who are trying to find everything from people to deliver pizzas to be the next top executives, they are struggling with workforce issues. Who are the next generation of entry-level or talented members of the workforce who are going to help their business grow?
The green economy has been a real focus point of this administration. I think they've done a great job in helping promote alternative energies. Businesses that build, especially solar, the solar applications have really exceeded our expectations to the point that we really need to refigure how we do net metering.
Right.
Is that the right way to go from your perspective, or would you go in a different direction?
Well, some of the great work we've been doing for decades, and it's certainly in the last few years, is invisible to a lot of Vermonters because it has to do with efficiency. So certainly not invisible to those who see their utility bills go down by having their homes weatherized. But what that looks like in the aggregate is less need for transmission costs, a lot more money going back into Vermonters' pockets. They're not paying in utilities. And we've seen the most stable utility rates in New England for the most part. So let's start there.
Down.
Exactly. We've had rate decreases. So starting there has been what Vermonters have done best. And then we've built incredible programs with Rutland being the solar capital of New England and a lot of rooftop solar. And then, the kinds of arrays that are starting to innovatively produce power all around the state. And that's creating thousands of jobs and the kind of jobs that people want to have and the kind of economy people want to be part of. So I think it's a great step, and we'll see this year how we can start to balance our energy future and our ability to work with our communities to place it in a way that feels right for them.
One of the things that remember visiting my sister in California outside Sacramento. I noticed parking lots being covered with solar.
Yeah.
I thought, what a great application.
Exactly.
It's not taking up new land. It's providing shade. It's providing power. I think it's the way to go here too.
Exactly. That's a conversation we're having right now, and it has to do with creating a rate that incentivizes that kind of solar development, which I think most people agree is, beautiful to look at, if not making them feel like they're doing their part in land that's already, desirable for that kind of development. So that would be absolutely the way to go. Rooftops of commercial locations, parking lots, landfills, quarries, you name it. It's trying to incentivize that first.
I think when we see arable farmland being used this way, it's not the best use, and we've got these other options.
Exactly.
Right alongside the economy, or a big part of the economy, is agriculture, and agriculture is evolving in Vermont. Dairy is still a huge part of that, but smaller, diversified agriculture is important. We had an issue come up in our town in Putney, young family trying to make a homestead, farming with raising some beef, some chickens, vegetables, hay, sugaring, and then wanting to do firewood. They've run into the challenge of the conflict between where's residential, where's agricultural land. So David Dean and I have a bill, I think maybe in your committee, around how we look at forest-related products.
Oh, absolutely.
This seems to be an area that's both attracting young people to Vermont and keeping them here. Thoughts on how we work that balance?
Yeah, I've learned more than I ever thought I would about silvopasture and these notions of really creating a robust ecosystem that feeds your farm. Exactly. So we have a number of forestry bills and related silviculture bills that help with our soils, our water quality, as well as create a right to forest and the ability to have a bit more freedom to engage in those kinds of practices. I'm also on the steering committee for helping with a bill introduced by Senator Campion of Bennington related to regenerative agriculture, which includes a lot of those same principles of let's manage our carbon and let's see it as a valuable resource in the farming and forestry process, and let's not waste our good, healthy soils while we have a new generation of farmers who want to engage in those practices that work with the land.
Well, it seems to be a way forward, and anything we can do that's attracting that next generation of workers and keeping them here, I think, is helpful. We talked a little bit about early education. There's certainly a lot of talk about pre-K through 12. The challenges we're realizing, too, is in post-secondary education. Our state college system is having its challenges now. There's a corresponding decline in enrollment that public schools are seeing. What are your thoughts about that?
Again, I think whatever area of education we're looking at, let's figure out ways to get more Vermonters into those programs. And let's see what programs we have that are barriers to people achieving higher education, rather than sort of wait and see and let things play out their own course. So, for example, we spend $158 million on our prison system and $88 million on our higher education system. How do we flip that by not simply saying we're closing a work camp because it's not full, but figuring out how do you do more of that work? How do you get more dynamic programs on our college campuses, on our state colleges? Frankly, a lot of it has to do with the cost as well of higher education. If everybody who started at a state college or at our universities stayed the course, then we wouldn't have a capacity issue. We'd have an overcapacity issue. We'd have, a lot of people who are matriculating, getting their degree. But right now, what we face is a situation where a lot of people take on the debt and it's too much for them, and then they leave. And that's absolutely what we don't want. So how do we reverse those trends?
I mean, it is a challenge. My daughters are 34 and 31. We're just finishing college loans.
Absolutely. Congratulations.
And that was at a time where it wasn't so bad. I can't imagine what parents are facing right now. So it's daunting.
It is. It is. And that, that is part of the reason I'm running for lieutenant governor. Is I'm part of that generation, that age group that's saying we want to buy a home, we want to start our lives here and, succeed and grow our families. And at the same time, student debt is eating away so many young Vermonters' incomes.
Yeah. Well, speaking of housing, it's a big issue, especially one of the barriers, I believe, to having people come in to the state is having workforce housing.
I would agree.
And the VHCB, our local land trusts, are doing great work.
Mm-hmm.
I think this year VHCB is level funded in the budget, but I think the way that they're supposed to get funded, they get money from property transfer taxes, and they're not getting quite all that they're supposed to.
Right.
Thoughts on that?
Right. Often when we put something in the budget that we know needs significant revenue, we dedicate a revenue source for it.
Yeah.
And the worst thing we can do is then divert that money when it starts to grow and we know that we wanted it to go to its intended purpose. So, it's really, it's a shame. It's about $5 million underfunded at this point, and the housing community leverages every dollar so extensively with tax credits and really makes our downtowns vibrant.
Mm-hmm.
And they do great work to preserve our working lands, to create more job opportunities. So it's a real win-win. It's one of the best investments we can make.
Yeah, I agree.
Sometimes I think what happens is the more systemic an approach is, the more it's about the holistic picture and how do we use this money to build healthier, stronger communities, the harder it is to make the case. The more they are their own enemy, unfortunately, by how good of a job they're doing.
And, was meeting with some legislators from other states and talking to them a little bit about that, and they said, wow, that's genius, combining conservation and housing.
Exactly.
Because in our state, those concerns are at odds with each other. They're
Right.
competing for the same
Right.
dollars. So it was really, I think, one of Howard Dean's better things that he left as a legacy. And the idea of conserving more land, again, that's part of the legacy we're leaving for generations to come. So this is all important.
Exactly. It's the smart thing to do.
You bet. We've got a few minutes left. What else do people need to know about you to get them to come out and vote for you in the primary? And when is the primary?
Yes, that is an important question because people are rightfully focused on the presidential race and upcoming town meeting day vote on who will be our next president. I'm a proud supporter of Bernie Sanders. He gave me my first big break in politics when he invited me to introduce him and a rock star senator from Illinois to the stage at UVM when he was running for the Senate. And that rock star senator from Illinois encouraged me to run for office and turned out to be none other than Barack Obama, who became president 2 years later. So, my first foray into politics was due to some of our incredible Vermont leaders. And that's really part of the reason that I'm running for lieutenant governor is there's a new generation that wants to have a voice and to support Vermont and to be part of the promise of its future. And they need to see those opportunities. They need to be included. And I know there's a lot of Vermonters who are ready to help them be that next workforce, the next leadership, our doctors, our great Vermonters, our homesteaders, and they just, they need to have that voice at the table. So it's a really exciting time where Vermont is at a crossroads, and we have a lot of good work we can do to build that brighter future.
So we have the presidential primary in March.
Yes.
And then in
Oh,
August,
that's right.
we'll have the primary for state offices, right?
Yes, August 9th
Yeah.
is the state primary for governor on down to the legislature. If your legislators involved in a primary, I would love to have your support. And it's an interesting time in the calendar when a lot of folks are on vacation. So just know there are a lot of opportunities to vote early and vote by mail with your local town clerk.
Yeah. And if people want to get in touch with you, find out more, what's the contact information?
Yep, thank you. It's www.kesharam.com. That's KESHARAM.com. And thanks so much. I'd really appreciate having your questions and thoughts and getting to know each of you better.
Well, thanks so much for taking time today.
Thanks so much, Mike.
And good luck with it all.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Appreciate it.
And thanks to all the people back at BCTV for once again making it possible for us to bring our work in Montpelier back home to you, Windham County. Until next time, this is Mike Mwrowicki. Bye-bye now.
Bye.